Hi there, folks. Simon here. This is the moment we've been waiting for. This is, in fact, the finals of the Q2 2023 Beginner Tag Tournament. This is game one between Adelta and NameOfStone. Adelta in white, NameOfStone in black. And as you can see here, this is played on a 6x6 board with 15 minutes on the clock, 10-second increment, meaning that 10 seconds gets added to their clock after every turn, and no Comey. And if you don't know what Comey means, doesn't matter. We're not using it. Don't need to know it. So we are just about ready to jump right into this game one. And again, whoever wins this two-game match wins the whole thing. And they will be taking home first choice of the prizes. So without any further ado whatsoever, let's jump right into game one of this finals match. And here we go with the first move down at A1. And then adjacent corners is what we're going to be seeing for this opening. And then Adelta going straight into that knight's opening. Very, very meta play here. And again, more meta moves. Keeping that momentum. White definitely still has that momentum going for him right now. Building alongside. This is a great spot for a capstone. Look at that. Adelta has clearly been watching the capstones video of TAC University. This is a great spot. It follows a lot of the guidelines that we talk about in that video. And that just shouts, play me, play the capstone here. So we are seeing black drop a capstone down here. This is a pretty good spot too. This is in sort of like an L hinge here. And this is a kind of a linchpin stone because it's going for this vertical line, but it also is important for a horizontal if white wants to be making connections that way. And so this spot is pretty important, and having a capstone able to drop right on top of it, that's a pretty big deal. White now building off instead over here to C4, saying, all right, I'm going to go for this horizontal here. If black does come up, I can still place again at F4, and that would work towards both the vertical and the horizontal line as well. So I think that's going to be working out pretty well here. NameOfStone at a bit of a disadvantage right now, but it is fairly early. Again, this is turn 6, so it's pretty neutral in that regard, because it is a normal thing for black to be slightly behind when it's this early on in the game. And especially because white was able to drop that first capstone. Getting a first capstone down is no joke. That is a big, big boost to your positioning and just how you're able to stay in that game. So we see black now playing off, kind of saying, all right, I don't want you to get anywhere with that horizontal line. And then white kind of playing around it, knowing that they can kind of get away with that sort of thing. If they play above, they can then play at C5, go for that, make the connection there. This can come to the right, make that connection. So this is still working out pretty well for white. Black's going to have to do something here. That capture is going to happen at some point. So what I think black should be doing is building something over here. Like build a flat at F5, build something here at C3, because you're going to be bringing the capstone up, and you may be bringing it up yet again up at E4. And if you do, you want to have this sort of foundation that you can pull upon. So if you've got the capstone coming up, you can kind of build for this horizontal line, or you can build up at E6, kind of go for the vertical. That's the sort of thing that you want to be looking at here as black, because you know you're going to have to capture up eventually, because white does have momentum here. They're going to be making the first tag threats. So what you want to do is make it so when you do interrupt them, you're working for yourself at the same time. Now I see black kind of doing that here by playing off at A4 and B4, kind of building this out so they can make that connection, but it's not as strong as the other options I was mentioning. White just building straight up at A6 now. Black probably wants to build at B6 so that they can't make that connection and make that threat right away, which is totally fine here. White could build at C6, could decide to build down at C3. A lot of options here. Could build even at F4. does go for the c6, which feels like a more intuitive move. I feel like f4 is a really strong move here because it does build that citadel, and it works for this horizontal, but it also works for the vertical as well. It's a pretty strong move there. Now, what white can do is white can play here at f2. And playing at f2 would give white a attack threat. Though it would give black an excuse to come up with that capstone onto e3. And white wants to avoid that until absolutely necessary. So black playing now at f4. That's a better spot now. So black is getting that foundation down, able to come up and make a connection with that capstone, kind of build things along there. I think that's a good play. White does come down with the cap. This is now a threat. White can come up onto b6 or down onto a5 and make the road. Black comes up with the capstone to cut that off. Let's see, what's the play here? What's the play? I think the play might be coming left with c6 or placing at f5. Places at e6. I don't really know why the e6. That one's a bit of a mystery for me. Because black's going to want to come around to the left here. They're going to want to play here at c3 and b3 to make their threat. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the e6. Okay, so now white's filling in this area, kind of building this stronger. I guess they want to play at f5 here pretty soon. And I think maybe the idea behind e6 was to protect this e5 flat, so they can come down with it and then make this jump up at f4 at some point. That might be what the thought process was there. But now we do notice that both these players are playing very quickly. Adelta just below that 15-minute mark, which is what they started with. And NameOfStone at 13 minutes. And again, it's 15 minutes plus 10-second increment. So it's not a ton of time here. All right, black comes up with the capstone. Black is going to want to play at e3. So if white wants to stop that, white can play at e3 to kind of shut that down a little bit. What that would do is it would keep black from being able to make this horizontal threat very easily. And I think that's something that would work really well in white's favor. But instead, white playing at c3. I guess going for just the straight vertical here. Now white might want to play at e3. I feel like black is playing very defensively here. And while that is a common trait of playing as black, I don't feel like it's warranted at this point. I feel like black has options to regain this momentum, but is instead using those sort of opportunities to instead play defensively. So black playing down here doesn't really work for them offensively. White can play at d1 and make attack threat. And that's exactly what they do. So now black needs to make a flat-on-flat capture in order to stop this threat from happening. Likely with c2 plus or c2 right or c1 right, and they do go for the c1 right. But white can renew by placing at c1. White is also probably tempted to capture onto d1, since that is a stack now that is able to be exploited. Yeah, places at c1 to renew the threat. Now, if white does capture over onto d1 at some point, that is going to be very difficult to deal with for black. Not necessarily Tinue, but might as well be. I mean, it might be 10 UA if white is able to capture over onto D1 without something happening over here. Okay, so that occurs. Now white's probably going to play at B2. Since that's cut off, white doesn't want to capture over onto D1 at this point because it could just get recaptured. But a B2 placement renews the threat. And that is what white wants to be doing here, is to keep making these threats, keep forcing black to make these moves that black doesn't want to make. And that's exactly what happens. We might be seeing a C2 plus here, or a C2 minus, or even a 2D1 left here. We saw the 2D1 left, which I feel like is dangerous because white can drop a wall at D1, and that is going to be devastating because no matter what happens, with a wall at D1, white's going to be able to capture one of these stacks and cause some havoc with it. And that would be pretty brutal and tough to come back from for black. I'm not sure, though, if adelta would play that. Ooh, and interestingly, plays it at B1 instead of at D1. So D1, to me, seemed significantly better, specifically because of the opportunity to capture both stacks. So if C1 were to run away, for example, like move over to D1 or something, white's wall would still be able to capture onto the other stack. This one is interesting because this wall is blocking white's other opportunity to build a road, at B1. So building a flat at B1 would be a threat. So not the case anymore. Now white probably wants to capture over onto C1. Black's building for this vertical threat here, and black can make that threat on the following turn, but white capturing this is now able to spread to the left to cut off black's vertical threat and renew their own vertical threat as well. So white is going to be taking those two and spreading across exactly. So now this is the threat renewed. Black probably needs to do C2 plus here. They do go for the C2 plus. White probably going to fill in at B3 for yet another threat. Yeah, B3, there's the other threat. It is renewed. White can bring this flat left or throw the capstone all the way to B4. Either one is a road. Same with B5 minus, also creates a road. Black's in a bit of trouble here. Probably going to be looking at B4 minus. But that does kind of mess... Oh, and they missed the threat entirely, dropped a wall, and adelta was able to take the win. So congratulations to adelta for winning game 1 of this finals match in the Q2 2023 Beginner TAC Tournament. So that was great play from both players. A lot of fun to watch that. adelta just really pushed that hard, did not give any ground away, and just kept pushing. NameOfStone kind of fell behind a little bit because some of the opportunities they had to regain that momentum, they fell behind because they were playing a little too defensively, is what I felt like. A little too much defense there when they had opportunities to come back. So thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to check out the description below for all things TAC, especially the TAC Discord server, which is the community hub and where you can find all sorts of TAC resources like strategy guides and people to play with, whether that be right here on playtac.com or asynchronously right there in the Discord server. You can play just one move a day if you want to. A lot of great people to play with, a lot of great resources, and a lot of great fun. So thanks everybody for watching again, and until next time, have a great day and happy tacking.